It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha! Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's version of the Brouhaha. Good to have everybody with us tonight. One notable exception missing from our and our first and last segments is Dale. Dale's going to be out for segment 1 and segment 3 tonight, but man, we got a replacement here. Probably going to, well, no, I'm not going to say that. But Charlie Britton. Charlie's been with us a couple of times. He's a local sports nut. So
you're right, I know.
How you doing?
Knows about.
It takes one to know one, don't it? How you been, Charlie?
Man, it's doing great.
You like this baseball stuff, don't you?
Yes, sir. I like it pretty good. Sure do.
Well, there's been a lot of stuff going on. And, I think that we finally, the Super Regionals concluded last night. And tell us, who's in the College World Series this year?
All right, we got 3 teams from the SEC. You got Tennessee, LSU, and Florida, I believe. And we got a Tennessee and LSU matchup, SEC matchup in Game 4 Saturday, I believe. And then in the first bracket, let's go through them here. I got Oral Roberts and TCU in bracket 1, and also Virginia and Florida. Oral Roberts is a name you don't hear a lot. But you know what? They got good basketball and baseball at that university, don't they? They really do.
Have they been in here before? Are you familiar with?
I'm not too familiar with Oral Roberts. Sure not.
Yeah, but they're there.
They're there.
All right. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right. And then in bracket 2, you got Stanford, which had a wild game last night against Texas. They're going to play Wake Forest. And then you got the SEC matchup, Tennessee and LSU.
Ooh, that's going to be a war.
The Tigers have been there a bunch of times.
Yeah.
They have 6 national championships. I don't know how many times they've been to the World Series, but they won it 6 times. They're second only to USC.
I didn't realize Southern Cal had that many championships in baseball.
12 titles.
Wow.
Won 5 straight from 1970 to 74. And the last title was 98, so they haven't been there. They hadn't won in a long time, but they're not there this year. But they have 12 titles, and that's doubles LSU and Texas.
That's impressive.
It's a piece. That's pretty impressive.
Golly, I had no idea.
Pretty good.
Man.
All right, that's the brackets, and then, winners and losers, and we'll determine that in next week, I reckon.
I guess this college. Let's see. How long will this series last? Does it last for a week, or is it a week and a half, or do you know that off the top of your head?
Well, you'll have a double elimination, and then the 2 winners of each bracket will play maybe starting next Monday. I believe it's next Monday, and they'll play a 2 out of 3 series to determine the national champion.
Be here before we know it. So interesting times. State of Mississippi. 2 years ago, Mississippi State won it. Last year, Ole Miss won it. Everybody's kind of hoping that Southern Miss could get it done, but came up just short. But we may talk about that a little bit more in closing. But I tell you what, let's turn our attention to our tonight's guest. Dale's going to be conducting an interview for us here in a minute, and our guest tonight, Charlie, is Gary Grubbs. He's a Mississippi guy, an American character actor who has appeared in 178 credited shows and films since the 70s. He's been at it a while, but he's still working steadily. He's best known as Captain Steve Wycheck in For Love and Honor, Harlan in Will and Grace, and Mr. Drummond in Common Law. So this guy's a lot of fun. I think you're going to get a kick out of him. So let's take a break, and we'll be back with Dale and Gary in that interview right after this word from our sponsors. Be back in a minute.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Gary Grubbs. How are you doing today, Gary?
I'm up and going, doing pretty good. How you guys?
We're doing good. Now, where's your location today? I know you're a world traveler. Tell us where you might be residing today.
Well, my basic location is Hattiesburg, kind of west edge of Lamar County out here, and a big subdivision with a bunch of neighbors. But I stay here most, but I go to Gulfport on Wednesday night, every other Wednesday night, and teach acting classes. And then I do every other Thursday night, I go to Mobile. This week we happen to have a Saturday class, which was a big blowout. Had some people from out of town that wanted to study. So at least 2 nights a week I'm somewhere teaching acting and hanging out with actors.
Okay. Well, listen, let's go back in time a little bit, okay? Now,
All right.
tell us about your time when you were like a little kid until you got through high school. Let's go over that area, where you moved to and what sports you played.
Well, I had I guess everybody thinks I have an interesting childhood. My daddy was sheriff, and it was like now a rough time in Mississippi. The racial movement, integration was coming on, and there were people against people. And I would travel with my daddy. We were also in a dry county. We would go out. I would be 8, 9, 10 years old and go out with him to close down a moonshine or where people stuff like that. And so that was pretty interesting. I was walking out on the front porch with him one day when somebody shot out the window over his head.
Oh my goodness!
I know. And that was 2 weeks after they had killed the sheriff in Marion County. So I'm talking crazy times. He didn't seem to be scared a bit, but the kids were, and mother was. But we got through all that, and things got better. Then I grew up and had a really good high school career because I was an all-around athlete. So I was happy. I made all conference in football, basketball, and baseball. So I thought it was pretty cool. Then I ended up down in Southern Miss playing wide receiver for P.W. Underwood. We had 3 years of a very mediocre football team. But met a lot of good friends. I was the kicker. And some guy named Ray Guy showed up from Georgia, but that was the end of that. I was no longer the kicker.
You're no longer the kicker, huh?
Ray Guy. Yeah, I just went over there. Coach said, there's a new guy over here, Ray Guy. He's from Georgia. Go warm up with him. And I kicked about 4 or 5 times, and I thought, well, that's the end of my punting career. I'd kick it, and then he'd kick it over my head. I'd have to go get it, and I'd kick it to him, and he'd kick it back over my head. So that was the end of my punting career. But I played wide receiver and had a good time playing football at Southern Miss.
Well, that's great. Well, one highlight of your high school career, you got to play in the Mississippi All-Star game when it was called the North-South game. And who were some of the famous people that played in that game that year?
Well, the most famous person in the game was Bob White. You don't even know who that is. He was Meridian. He was Mississippi's first parade All-American. He's a quarterback. He got hurt the second or third play, messed up his knee, and we thought, well, we got this game won. So they put in some guy named Archie Manning from Drew, Mississippi.
Oh my goodness!
He was 6'3", about 175 pounds, looked like a string bean running around, and he ran all over Jackson that day. And it was sort of the start of Archie Who. We scored 35 points, and they scored 55. So I had a pretty good game there, but that's when I met Archie Manning and began to follow his career, and still know him today. See him every now and then.
Yes, sir. That was some good times in high school football, because that's kind of the era that me and Marshall was attuned to. All right. Well, listen. Okay. So, what did you do when you finished college, and what kind of degree did you get, in acting or what?
No, I got a business degree.
Yeah. And
my acting career goes back to my football. I had a football buddy who used to go over to the theater department and try out for plays. And he didn't want anybody on the football team to know it, because he said they'll think I'm a sissy if I go do theater. So he would try out for plays, and I would help him run his lines and get ready, and he'd go over there. He was terrible. And he went over there, and he went over there, and he went over there for 3 years. His 4th year, he was just about to graduate. He got a part in a play as a spear catcher or something. I mean, nothing. And so that was the end of his acting career. So I graduated and got a job selling bulldozers still all over the state to construction people. And some stuff to the hoods who are still in the lumber business. And anyway, construction companies sold bulldozers. And I'm at home one night, and about half asleep, and I hear Cooper's voice, my college buddy. And I look up, and there he is on Little House on the Prairie. And I said, my word. So I called his mother. She gave me his phone number. I called him, and he'd been out there about 6 months and had just done the Little House on the Prairie. And he said, I got a job next week on Policewoman with Angie Dickinson. And I said, I'm on the way. I'm getting the plane ticket.
And your acting career was off and running.
I wasn't worried about Cooper. I wanted to see Angie Dickinson, though. So he said the very sentence he should have never said to me. He said, Grubbs, you should come live out here. This beats the heck out of work. And you know what? I'm tired of bulldozers. My wife was a Miss Mississippi. Actually, it had a recording, and we had a little bit of, money in the game. So she was okay with giving it a try. And literally 3 weeks later, we were living in Los Angeles.
Wow.
So you talk about people who work hard and try to figure it out. Well, I didn't know a thing about it. I just knew if he could do it, I could do it. So we took off.
There you go. Well, listen, you just had a great career, and just seeing some of your, I guess parts in movies and things like this, and I mean, people. Gary, somebody asked me the other day when I was showing them your little resume here. She said, I don't know this Gary Grubbs. I said, yes, you know him. So how can people tell? I mean, has anybody said that to you over the years as far as, I think I know you, but I don't know your name?
Oh, my Lord. That will happen. That will happen 5 times today.
Wow.
People, now, another 5 times, people will go, hey, man, I know you. I saw you on Murder, She Wrote, or I know you. I saw you so-and-so. Some people know you. Other people look at you and go, did we go to church together? They'll ask me anything because they know that they know me. They know that they've seen me. And if I talk to them, they know they've heard my voice.
Yes.
So I can lie to them and go, man, I have no idea. I must look like somebody you know. If I don't have time to talk, that's what I say. But if I want to talk to them a minute, I said, well, you may have seen me on television. Oh, what? And I said, no telling. I'm on there a lot because of cable and everything. Well, what's your name? I said, just Google Gary Grubbs. So they Google my name, and there it is. A couple of 100 credits. Oh, man, now I know you. I saw you on this, or I saw you on that. So I have a good time with it. Sometimes people say, man, where do I know you from? And I say, I think we were in prison together.
Hey.
My wife was going to be standing there about my age, and she'll say, where do I know you from? I said, oh, come on, we had a date once. And so I have a good time with it. And but the thing that saved my life was the cell phone. Now I can say, yeah, that's what I was, but I'm in a rush here. But let's you and I get a picture together. So I can take a snapshot. I mean, they can take a selfie of me and them, and they know my name. And I go, I got to run. Good to see you. And they're happy because they got a picture they can go show people, and they can look me up. Yeah. So I don't have to stand there and asking me about one movie after another. And I'll do that. I'll leave the house here in a minute to go work out and go to the doctor's office, take care of this throat thing I got, and I'll see 3 or 4 to half a dozen people who want to know who I am. And then a lot of people here in town now do know who I am. So that's kind of the life I live.
Well, listen, I mean, your credits are pretty good, and some of the people that you work with, like an Oliver Stone or a Clint Eastwood, I mean, they're just household names in the industry, as people here in Mississippi would know when they're talking about them. But what has been your most favorite part or most interesting part that you've ever played?
movie here that people can see right now called God Bless the Broken Road just 2 years ago. Is out there. That's a good little part. It's a good Christian part. It's a fun part. They might want to look that up. People know me. I was on the first year of Will and Grace as Will's boss, and then I was on the last year of the OC. Well, those are shows that kids and young people have watched, so that a lot of people know me from that. But I think it was that's my second part. The first part I had a part in a thing called Dead Man's Curve. That was Jan and Dean, this famous singing group couple. And so I stood between Mike Love of the Beach Boys and Dick Clark. And I was dressed up as one of the sons of the Pioneers. So I'm sitting there with a guitar going, "Oh, come tumbling down," like I know what I'm doing.
Sounds pretty good.
And yeah, that was my first part. And then my next part, I got a call, and the guy said, "I need you to get out to the Burbank Ranch. There's a little part out there they've added." And it was on a thing called Gideon's Trumpet. Now, Gideon's Trumpet was the arrest case that started the Miranda case, where they read you your Miranda rights.
Right.
Well, there were no Miranda rights until like 52 or something. They arrested a man, and he said they arrested him illegally and got a lawyer, and by the time it was over, the Miranda rights, where you have to read a person's rights. But anyway, I go out there, and they say, "All right, Gary, get dressed, cut your hair. You got to go over there, and you got to arrest this guy at the bar. And these are your 3 lines." I said, "Okay, I got it. Here we go." So I got it ready. I go over there and open the door, and there's Henry Fonda sitting at the bar. So my second part was with Henry Fonda. So that was pretty exciting. Got to meet and talk with him. And then my third part was somebody you may have heard of, was with Elizabeth Taylor. So
I've heard of her. I've heard of her. Yeah.
Acting part.
Yeah.
Huh?
I've heard of Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah, I have been fortunate to work, in Oliver Stone and Tommy Lee Jones and Kevin Costner, and I really worked. I tell people my career is not what I've worked, it's who I've worked with. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't get to work with an Academy Award winner, and I've been, I think, with 6 Academy Award winning directors. So I've had a kind of a special career in that way, because people want to work with those kind of people, and I don't know, I just seem to end up on jobs they're on. Sometimes you don't know who's going to be there when you go. You don't know who all the parts are half the time.
Well, you told me one time that you had an interesting part, and you were in there with like a Tom Selleck and all those, and you went up against them. Tell us about that interview for that part and what that was about.
No, that was actually the interview for the OC.
Okay.
I go out there to read OC, which is a hot program for kids. The OC being Orange County, it's how they live in fast and fun and furious in Orange County. And so I go in there to read, and there sits Tom Selleck and Gerald McCraney and Bo Bridges. And I think, well, how the heck? I'm reading against, some of the biggest guys in the business. Mm-hmm. And I think, well, how the heck am I going to get this part? Well, I get the script, and the name of the character is Gordon Bullitt. So when I go in there, it's back before they would put you on tape and send it in. You go in the room, and there were, 8 or 10 people sitting around the table, and I'm going to read, do my little part. So my first line is, "Nice to meet you. My name's Gordon Bullitt." So I say, "Nice to meet you. My name's Gordon Bullitt, and that's with a bang." Well, they all laughed, and I ended up getting the part because I said, "That's with a bang." and by saying that, and then they put it in the script, and I said it the whole show, and half the other characters, they'd look out and they'd say, "Who is that?" And they'd go, "Bang." They wouldn't even say my name. That became a catchword of the show. And in fact, I did a podcast with them a few weeks ago, and we all laughed about it. They do a podcast all the time now. They call you. I did a podcast of Will and Grace the other day, where 2 of the guys on there, Sean Hayes and Eric McCormick, were there, and they were interviewing me, and we were going over all the funny stuff we did on the Will and Grace, and of course that was the first real gay character show, so I got to make fun of them. We had a good time, had a good talk.
Well, let's make a U-turn for just a minute, and let me ask you a question. So you go to Hollywood, and you know, I guess Cooper's giving you some advice, but what's your game plan when you get there? How do you know how to get a part? Because, like you said, you go in there and you interview against all these major stars.
Well, here's what the biggest luck thing I had, if I had any luck, was that Jimmy Carter was president. Dallas was on TV, Dukes of Hazzard, BJ and the Bear, all those 3 or 4 Southern shows. And Dallas was the hottest show, and I had a natural Southern accent. I didn't have a fake Southern accent. I didn't have a pretend Southern accent. I couldn't talk without a Southern accent. So when I got in the room, I was the most natural guy in the room, saying the words.
Yeah.
Now, being a salesman, a bulldozer salesman, I know, okay, I got to find out who can help me sell something. So I get in the casting book and read. I find me a casting director who's from Mississippi. So I go down and meet with him and say, look, his name was Ramsey King. He's retired and he's back on the Gulf Coast. And I tell him, I said, buddy, you got to get me started. I have no way to get started unless some casting director from Mississippi will give me one part. Well, the first part with Jan and Dean, he gave me. The second part with Gideon's Trumpet with Henry Fonda, he gave me. And from there, it was like, you know, who's this new guy? He's getting all these parts. And I got From Here to Eternity. And I really got started by this one guy getting me a couple of parts, and then from me being natural and being Southern. And so I didn't know how to act, and I didn't do any acting. I was just a Southern boy, you know? And everybody else was trying to act like they were Southern and act like they were a redneck, and they were overdoing it.
Right.
So I was able to go in rooms and get parts. So it was a blessing that I had a Southern accent. It was a blessing that Carter was president, and that I knew a guy from Mississippi. I put 2 and 2 together, and all of a sudden, it takes people years to get started, and then in a couple of years, I had 8 or 10 parts, you know. And from there, your job is to go on the set, make friends with the director so he'll hire you again, so he likes you. Don't be a troublemaker, always be on time, be ready. And so I knew how to do that. So I built my own career by working for the same people over and over. So that worked out well, too. So I was somebody else. Let me tell you what, you go out there right now with a natural Southern accent, it's not worth a nickel to you. You know what I mean? You'd be better off with a European accent than a Southern accent. So, you know, right place, right time, that was me. So it worked out well, and we got started and had a good career and a fun time there.
Well, you know, in society today, a lot of people are kind of leaving California. How has the movie industry changed? Because I mean, I just say this from what I read, which I don't know is always accurate, but it seems like the taxes are out of sight out there, and this and that. And a lot of people are moving out, and even the actors are. How's Hollywood changed?
They're living because of the cost of living. You know, 1 million people left New York City in like 16 months during COVID, and they left because they're paying $3,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment. Then they found out they could work online and pay, you know, $3,000 for a 3,000 square foot house in Atlanta or Jackson or Hattiesburg. So a lot of people lived there because that's where their job was. They had to go to work, and that's what they wanted to do. And when they got where they could do something else and not live in the city and find a better place to raise your kids and live, make more money, make the same money, and live a better life, they came out of there. So that's why they're coming out of there. But see, we lived in Burbank. People go, good man, Lord, how could you live in California? That's crazy. And when I go to California, they go, good gracious, man, how could you live in Mississippi? That's crazy. Because, see, that's all they put on the news. They don't put normal people on the news about California. They put about the crazy, the liberals, and they don't, the real liberals. And then when they start talking about Mississippi, they don't put the conservatives, they put the rednecks and crazy folks. So they, whatever's the most interesting, they put on the news, but it gives Mississippi a bad name, it gives California a bad name. There was no difference from us living in Burbank and us living in Hattiesburg, not a bit. Our friends, our church, what we did, where we went, how we were raising our kids, it was not a problem. But most people don't know that. And see, politically, I'm in the middle. So when I get on the plane and land in L.A., I'm the most conservative guy in L.A. And when I get on the plane and come back to Mississippi, I'm the most liberal guy in Mississippi because I try to live in the middle, and nobody does that anymore. So that's part of what's going on in my life right now. We're getting ready to go back out there now. I've got an agent I'm writing, selling scripts, trying to sell scripts. I had a Dolly Parton script on Netflix 2 years ago. And then my son and I have had a game show we're trying to get made. And then I got another script I just finished. And I've never had an agent because it's always out there. So I just signed with a big Hollywood agent. So I'm going back out there to try to sell some scripts. So I never quit the business. I just changed zip codes.
Well,
that's what I did.
Yeah, well, you're pretty good. You're a writer now and you're an actor, but you also do a little singing, right? One of your favorite series that you had for a time was Davy Crockett, and that was back in the 80s. And didn't you sing on that show?
Let's see. Born on a mountaintop, Tennessee, greenest state in the land of the free, raised in the woods so he knew every tree, killed him a bear when he was only 3. Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier. Now,
that's a heck of a song.
On the planet.
Yeah.
That's the only song on the planet I can sing.
Okay.
I can carry a tune, but I have no range. I can't go up and I can't go down.
Yeah, but that was on.
When they call.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Me to come sing the Davy Crockett song, my wife, with a master's in voice, like to freaked out. She goes, "You can't sing?" I said, "No, but I can act like I can."
Hey.
So we went over there, and you ready for this? I sang one verse. Guess how many verses there are? 28.
28
Oh,
verses.
my goodness.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, there are 28 verses. Each one's a different story of him hunting or him fighting the Indians or him, fighting the bear or him, whatever is his life story in a song. And that came from Davy Crockett in 1956 when he was first on. And there I am, 40 years later singing it.
Well, listen,
But I enjoyed it.
Back in the day, there was like 3 or 4 TV channels, and that was about it, right? And today we got about 300.
Right.
But you became kind of an overnight sensation in 2 great TV kind of movies, I guess that's what they're called, in Burning Bed and Fatal Vision. Tell us about those 2 shows coming on back-to-back days.
Yeah, well, you're right there. That was I was been there about 4 years, and we could go anywhere and do anything. Nobody knew me much. Every now and then somebody recognized me. Some actor would recognize me, but not the public. And there's a story of a woman whose husband kept beating her up. And he came in one night and beat her up and got drunk, laid in the bed. She went there and poured gas on him and set him on fire. And they arrested her. And it was called The Burning Bed. And actually, the lawyer got her off. So they did The Burning Bed with Farrah Fawcett, which was an interesting title, and everybody knew the show, and they tuned in by the millions because there's only 3 channels. There were no cable channels. There was no streaming channels. You know what I mean? So the whole country's watching it, and they're watching Farrah Fawcett, who's just off of the Charlie's Angels. So that show had 50 million viewers. Today you have a show and you have 1 million viewers, 2 million viewers. So, and that was on one Friday night, and the next Saturday night was a show called Fatal Vision, which is the story of Jeffrey McDowell. And Jeffrey McDowell was a guy who killed his wife, military guy, came in and killed his wife and 2 children, and got off, and he was told a story about wild, crazy hippie guys were running out of the house when he got there, and that's who killed him. Well, there was no DNA at that time. And so they shut that apartment down, locked it up, and 2 years later they came out with DNA. They go back in that apartment, get the blood off the walls and off of their clothes, and his DNA is everywhere. So 2 years later, after he's been on the Tonight Show and everywhere else being a hero, he gets arrested and sent to life in prison, still there. And that was the Jeffrey McDonald show. And on that show, it was Gary Cole had his first part, and that show did the same thing. It was so much in the news and in People magazine and Time magazine and military stuff that I had another 50 million people watch it. Well, Glenn and I were going all over L.A. shopping, doing what we were doing. All of a sudden, everybody knows me everywhere I go. You know, and that took some getting used to. Wanting my autograph, wanting pictures, and 2 weeks earlier they didn't know me from the guy at the meat counter, and all of a sudden I'm some kind of movie star. You know, and so those two movies really started my career in a big way, and because both of them turned out to be really big, big stories to the public, so they became stories that people watched. And in Matlock, in Burning Bed, I'm wrong. In Fatal Vision, Andy Griffith is the prosecuting attorney, and in the movie, he dies after the first 2 days of the trial, and I am his assistant. So all of a sudden, and his name is Matlock, and he's in the movie called what's that called? Anyway, he's in that movie. And he's playing the part of Matlock, Fatal Vision, and he dies in the movie, not for real. And I take his place, and so I'm in the rest of the movie. So that's how people know me. And about a month later, they start a television series. Guess what it's called?
Matlock.
Matlock. Yeah.
Hey,
so it was spinoff because they had seen, all those people had seen him play an attorney and liked him, got a lot of fan mail, and so the network put him in a series called Matlock, and then a few years later I was in Matlock with him.
Well, listen.
So it just goes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's just so much that you have done, and I'm just trying to highlight a couple, like Free State of Jones. A lot of people know about that since it's a South Mississippi movie, basically. Tell us about your experience in the Free State of Jones.
Well, I was just had the part of a prosecuting attorney, and a good part, and a part with a guy with a sense of humor, and especially behind the scenes when they were arguing about, whether the guy was guilty or not. I was always making fun, making a joke, but not when I was in front of the jury. But I could make the jury kind of smile, and I was just glad to get it because it was local and because it was about Jones County, and I knew, had read, was around when all that stuff happened. So, and it was a highly rated show too. So I was happy to be in Free State of Jones just because it was a Mississippi story. You don't always get to be in a Mississippi story. So I had a good part in that, and wasn't huge. But it was an attorney who was real serious in front of the jury. And back when he was with the other attorneys preparing the trial, he was making jokes all the time. But when he's in front of the judge and the jury, he wasn't. So that was a good part. Not a big part, but a good part. And I got to interview Matthew McConaughey's mother, who he put in the movie. And we had a great interview. And I'll be dog if it didn't cut it out. Well, they're not going to cut out Matthew McConaughey's mother. Well, they did. We had about a 5-minute good interview. We shot it, and she did well. And I thought, well, that's great. Well, we never saw it. And they shoot about, if a 2-hour movie, they'll shoot 2 hours and 30 minutes. And 30 minutes of it, it's like a piece of land. Here's a good part. Here's a bad part. We build a road over here. So in the end, some of it's left out. So I've had some good stuff left out, but mostly everything I've shot's been in movies. So, but that was one that wasn't. But I still had a good part. It turned out to be a good show.
Well, I see here too that you worked with Oliver Stone and JFK and Clint Eastwood and Honky Tonk Man, and that seems like opposites, but it seems like just working with those guys, you got to learn something.
Yeah, that's right. Oliver Stone and I argued a lot. He's got his way of doing what he was doing. He took JFK and told his story, but he didn't tell the truth, and he knew it, and we knew it. So sometimes I just didn't want to do it. You know what I mean? I just didn't want to say a line that I knew he had made up to make his side of the story look right. So I changed it a little bit. He goes, "Can you read? It says maybe." And I said, "Yeah, but it wasn't a maybe. It was a certainty." So he and I kind of went at it a little bit, but I didn't care. I didn't like Oliver Stone that much anyway. So he and I went head-to-head a little bit, which is something I seldom do. But anyway, he would take a piece of film footage that was real and accurate, and then he would recreate the film footage to make it real and accurate for him. So you see what I mean? So you're watching and you go, "That's real film footage." No, it's not. It's film footage where he's recreated it to look like his film footage, so it'd say what he wanted to say. So that kind of stuff, I just didn't appreciate that. So, you know me, I let him know a little bit. He and I think I would have been in that movie a little more if I'd have kept my mouth shut. But I was a little older and been around a while and thought, "Man, don't get on here and lie. That JFK murder's too big of a thing to be making up stuff. Tell the truth, you know." But anyway, he wanted to tell his story. He wanted to claim it and be part. Who was that attorney down there? The name of that guy?
Jim Grayson. Was it Jim
there
Grayson?
There you go. Yeah.
Jim Grayson.
That's it. Yeah, he wanted to change. He wanted to change his story, make him look bad, and so on and so forth. So anyway, but I did it, and a lot of people saw it, and they don't know all behind the scenes. They don't know what's going on half the time, and you shoot stuff that you love that's not in the movie, stuff you don't even want to shoot in the movie, but that's just part of it. That's why you have to keep working. But I overall had a pretty good career. Most everything I shot was in the movies, but I turned down a lot of movies, and I started turning down movies in the last 10 years because of the language. You got kids and grandkids. You don't want to be saying the ugliest words on the planet back to back to back to back. You know what I mean? They can't say, damn. They got to say GD, or they got to say, bad words. They just put them all everywhere. Yeah. And I think, you know what? I don't do that part. I don't want to be on tape. People watch that. My great-grandparents must be cussing like a sailor 50 years from now. So that's when I started less work and more writing and more teaching. So I don't worry about it much anymore. I've kind of done it. Very few people have as many credits as I do, so I just consider myself, had a good career and moving on. That's kind of where I am.
Gary, this is Marshall. One of my primary function, maybe not my only function, is timekeeper. And unfortunately, we are out of time. But, man, we have really enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Morris, you got one thing to say, and that's goodbye. All right.
Well, I tell you what.
I get it. Thank you. I enjoyed the conversation. Good talking to you guys.
Thank you so much. Hold on just a minute. Dale and I are going to take a break to hear from our sponsor. We'll be back for the final segment of tonight's Brouhaha. See you after the break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back, everybody. I tell you what, Gary Grubbs, he was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed him. That may be the longest interview in Brouhaha history, but man, he did a good job. We had a lot of fun with that, and I always appreciate Dale and getting all this stuff lined up for us. And well, Charlie, we talked about the College World Series. Any closing remarks on that? I know, Scott, this is not CWS related, but Scott Berry, 7 straight 40-win seasons. Is that correct?
That's pretty impressive.
That doesn't happen every day, does it?
That's right.
Man, and he's retired, so we got a new guy coming on, and
Oh, Jones Bobcat.
No,
Ex-Jones Bobcat.
yeah.
Christian Ostrander, I believe his name is. He was head coach at Jones College or Jones Junior College for a few years, and I'm sure he'll do good.
He's a pitching coach over there now, isn't he?
That's correct.
And I have heard, well, I don't know, but some of the talk was that, he was in such demand across the country. They've had some All-American pitchers up there. Tanner Hall's back-to-back All-American. He was in such demand was that, Scott, I guess, decided, well, if I'm going to go, we better go now and get this guy on in here. That's pretty, I don't know, but.
Talking about pitching, I saw where a guy from Stanford, I can't recall his name, but he threw 154 pitches in a game last night or night before last, and that just blows my mind. 154 pitches.
Isn't there a limit?
Well, I reckon that was his limit. 154. I mean, you just don't hear that. Anybody gets close to 100 pitches, they're usually they're history. But 154 pitches in a baseball game.
Well, that's a lot. That sounds like a lot to me. I can't even throw one. My shoulder won't let me throw one. Well, Charlie, look, I know we had a long interview and our time is limited, but I'm going to tell you what, I've always known you to be a step up to the plate kind of guy, brother. I've known you since you was about that tall, which ain't very, but anyway. But thank you so much for being with us on the Brouhaha tonight.
I hope I filled them shoes just a little bit for old Dale.
All right, Dale, we're going to expect a full report on Charlie's performance when you get back. But anyway, I want to remind everybody that you can follow us during the week on our Facebook page at the Brouhaha, and all of our shows are cataloged on our YouTube channel at, you guessed it, the Brouhaha. We want to thank our guest tonight for being with us, and Gary Grubbs, and also again we thank you, Charlie. But for now, it's come to the time in our show where Charlie, what we got to say.
Goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale, and we'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.